Welcome to Fleet News Group podcast. I'm Caroline Falls, and today I'm recording from the Brisbane Truck Show. I'm with Tim Camilleri, e-mobility solutions manager at Volvo. We're actually sitting in the cabin of the first electric prime mover brought into Australia, attracting a lot of attention here because, as I said, it's one of the first large electric trucks to be brought into Australia. So welcome, Tim.
Welcome, thank you for having me. It's great to do this and great to do this in the truck.
So, Tim, first I better let you talk about this particular vehicle. And, I'm particularly curious about what application a truck like this is going to have in Australia, which, let's face it, is a very different environment to Europe, where, in Australia we've got remote long distance routes compared with closely connected large cities. And, so application, and also I guess what sort of inquiry are you getting?
Yeah, so this truck here is in one of the first heavy duties. This is the first heavy duty electric we have in the country. We've got an FM and an FH now in the country, and we're looking for sales start in the coming months on these vehicles. But on terms of the applications they're suitable for, they are capped at a 44-ton gross combination mass, so they're a single trail operation, and they really play themselves into the use cases of that metro delivery. So single trailer metro delivery. Think a Woolworths, retail, DC to warehouse to store kind of operation. So, and that's where the primary part of our inquiry is coming as well. So, you spoke about our distances and our roads and our conditions in Australia, and for the most part, where these vehicles start is in that metropolitan area, very similar to European operations, let's say.
I'm just talking about that sort of application, going from a distribution centre into, say, a Woolworths supermarket. I mean, I guess the quieter vehicle means that we can do this at different hours. Is that correct?
Yeah, in a past life I was a traffic engineer, and when we did development applications, you had to put up screening around the service bays, or they had a time limit on when they could accept deliveries because of the noise of which the vehicle would make. So these vehicles enable that conversation to be had, to think about operations slightly differently, and that's a difference between the operator, the end user and consumer of the transport, but also the government on the council and state side as well, to say, well, if this vehicle doesn't make noise, what can we do with it? How do we optimise its usage even further above and beyond what a vehicle that would make noise does?
Yes, so it's a real game changer. Look, I also have to comment on how comfortable and beautiful the cabin of this vehicle is. So today's the second day of this massive Brisbane Truck Show, and yesterday I ventured into a few other truck cabins and got talking about how the advent of electric trucks is opening up opportunities for more people, including women, to join the industry as drivers. So the technology in an electric vehicle like this today means gears can be changed and steering wheels can be handled more easily. So can you sort of talk about that point and how it might be inadvertently encouraging more diversity?
I think it's a really great point, because as we are, it's a critical industry, the truck industry, and having that diversity in people that can become truck drivers is critical for ensuring we get the number of people in to run it. And vehicles like this, to be fair, having driven it myself, it is easy. It's quiet. There's no vibrations. You're not as fatigued at the end of a shift as you would be in another vehicle. So it's not about. For me, part of it's about the enablement as well, but it's more the invitingness of driving this truck. It's not as hard on your body. It's not not as fatiguing and tiring to do. So and it's exciting. It's a new truck. It's a cool truck. It's something that's something exciting and gets people involved. So I think what it potentially can end up doing, and we'd really like to hope to see it happen in opening up more diversity in driving. It has the potential to, and I really hope it does achieve it.
You used the word exciting before I did, but it is a big word these days in transport.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, you must be one of the most popular people at Volvo and at social gatherings with your focus on electric mobility and like trucks. So how did you begin your career, and how did you wind up in this role?
My career starts as a traffic engineer working in private organisations for development applications to inside government, then taking a shift into IT project management inside government, and then into autonomous vehicles, and then consulting on that back to governments in Australia and overseas. So in the last bit, I spent a lot of time consulting and advising on how to make transport technology changes, and it was when the Volvo role came up, and the opportunity to work with something that's real and in the metal and deploy things came up. I chomped at the bits to apply for the job. So I won't say that I'm the most popular person at Volvo, but I think it's in the area we're in. It's one of the more exciting areas overall, and it's only growing in terms of what we started with the medium duty range, now the heavy duty range, and what the future looks like. It's only ever growing as well.
So yeah, let's talk about the future and like Volvo's strategy. So obviously you're making huge strides with your electric vehicles and trucks in Europe. Can you tell us about your global EV strategy, and what is the plan for Australia?
So the plan for Australia is to, as much as possible, not be a laggard. We have, in the past, in not just trucking, or not only trucking, in technology adoption, Australia has been a laggard in some regards, passenger vehicles, but so we're trying to keep ourselves aligned as closely to the developments and releases of product overseas. But for us at Volvo, we've signed up to the Paris Agreement, net zero by 2050. So what that means for us is that our vehicles have to have reduced CO2 emissions of up to 100% by 2040. So what does that mean on our side and our products? Well, it starts with electrification for us in the medium duty range, and moves up to the heavier vehicles in electrification. But then into the future, in the second half of this decade, we'll see the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles coming online as well, and opening up more applications and more capability in true zero emission vehicles. But it's not to forget, and I think this stand, the Volvo stand overall shown today, is we're looking at that internal combustion engines running on hydro-treated vegetable oil or renewable diesel. So, there's also that aspect of improvements to existing vehicles and products on renewable diesels, improved aerodynamics and the like. So, getting the most out of everything overall. So, the summary for us is we are agnostic to the energy source the vehicles run on, but trying to develop more sustainable transport options.
So you're just talking about like developing hydrogen technology, and it's just curious that Volvo, which also distributes Mack trucks and UD trucks in Australia, is in a joint venture with basically a traditional competitor, Daimler, which distributes Mercedes, Fuso and Freightliner trucks. You're in a joint venture with them to develop hydrogen technology for trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit more about that joint venture plan. And
yeah, so it's a joint venture between us, Volvo Group internationally, and Daimler, called Cellcentric. What's happening there is we're working together to do the innovation that is the fuel cell technology that runs the hydrogen fuel cell battery electric vehicles. So the fuel cells itself to put into the vehicles to go our separate ways and put in our different packages and chassis overall. So for my mind anyway, it shows that as you said, key competitors in the past, but working together to ensure that the production of this technology comes sooner rather than later and at a high quality.
There's definitely a refrain that we hear more and more, this talk about working together and collaborating. I mean, if we're to get to the future that we need to get to quickly, collaboration's essential. Another thing that you sort of just raised, and which I'm hearing a lot just in the last day, is this buzz about an outlook for biofuels, like vegetable oil to power trucks. So I must say, there's a big gap in my knowledge here. I don't know a lot about it. But are we talking about virgin oils or used oils or both? I mean, I'm just wondering if we need to keep truck drivers on a diet of burgers and fries.
Oh, I think it always helps, right? Every little bit helps, but no, overall it's a mixture of both, and it's just, you know, there are ways of growing it from crops. There are ways of getting it from animal fats as well, and then, you know, reusing existing oils back into it. But for my mind, I think the best part is that we leave all those options open as to how we can source it in sustainable and efficient ways. So how in which it plays out in its majority and spread will be interesting. But for now, you know, mixing it up and making sure there's a multi-pronged approach to it is essential.
Did I hear right somewhere yesterday that all your trucks are going to have the vegetable oil option?
So all the internal combustion engine vehicles on the stand today are filled with HVO, hydrotreated vegetable oil. They are capable of having a drop-in 100% HVO replacement for diesel. So HVO, hydrotreated vegetable oil, is molecularly and chemically identical to diesel. So you can mix it with diesel, you can replace it with diesel. It's a great option for those vehicles. Its concern at the moment is the supply. So it's only quite new in Australia, let's say, and definitely not sufficient supply at this point in time. But that's going to ramp up more and more into the future.
Yeah, wow. Meanwhile, Volvo is an agitator, you know, along with the Electric Vehicle Council and many other truck industry suppliers of the Australian federal government. You're calling for changes to Australian mass and width standards so that battery electric vehicles, trucks, have a better chance. So can you explain what we're talking about here? It's to do with Australian roads being narrower and softer, I understand, than, say, roads in more heavily populated European countries. And I mean, it sounds like a difficult problem to solve if increased axle weight is going to result in more damaged roads here. So can you sort of like help educate me and my audience about this topic?
It's a very interesting topic, and it's multi-layered. So I'll try and summarize it quickly. But overall, these vehicles are slightly wider than what's allowed in Australia. So currently we're allowed 2.5 meters width in Australia. In Europe, that's 2.55 meters, and in America, it's 2.6 meters. So to fit the batteries on the vehicles, they are slightly wider. I think it's 10 mils either side in most cases. So looking for that change to allow these vehicles on. We have vehicles over width already in Australia, and it seems to be coming into legislation. That conversation seems to be progressing well. But on the weight side of things, the vehicle we're sitting in now, the FM electric prime mover, is about 2.5 tons heavier than its diesel equivalent. So that weight just has to go somewhere, and where those batteries are sitting in the only space available beside the chassis there, some of that weight's going forward into the front axles. So to get this vehicle on the road, it needs a slightly higher than currently existing legislation. The reason why, or one of the reasons why Australia is a 6.5 ton front axle limit, and Europe in some places in Europe, and the electric vehicles are allowed up to 10 tons, but one of the reasons why we're at 6.5 in Australia is because of our roads and our distances and the way we make roads as well. So, and we've had this design standard for some time at 6.5, 6 tons and lower. And every time infrastructure is made, it's made with those Australian design requirements embedded into them. So culverts and bridges are designed with those vehicles at their base analysis. So as we keep on moving up and up, those structures may not be built for the higher conditions.
Can you also talk a bit about fuel efficiency standards? So as part of its EV strategy, the federal government's considering or has vowed that they will introduce fuel efficiency standards, which effectively compel OEMs to meet an average emission or pay a fine. So would such a standard also have an impact on the truck market in Australia, or is it just passenger vehicles?
It's an interesting question. I think it would. I think it would have impact. But from a Volvo point of view, we're trying to bring as many models as we can in the zero emissions vehicles. We want to open up as many models as we can to the consumers in Australia. So for us, it wouldn't compel or change us, I think, greatly. But for the wider industry, who knows? Probably can't comment on how everyone else is going to take it. But looking around this show and the offerings on zero emissions vehicles around the place, it seems that it's going that way as an industry, and everyone's bringing an offering to Australia.
And just to finish off, because we're here at the Brisbane Truck Show, are you amazed and surprised at how enthusiastic everyone seems to be about the entry of lower emissions vehicles? Like, the trucking industry has always been one characterised by passion of the people within it. And do you see that continuing as electric trucks make inroads? And I just sort of wonder, how they'll change the character of the industry.
I've only just gone a quick walk around this morning and haven't looked at all the stands in detail, but it seems that the majority of the stands have a environmental or sustainability aspect or inspiration to what they're offering overall, and that's a pretty big change for this industry. But I think it's one that we're sitting in the cab as everyone's walking around us, and there's a high amount of intrigue and inquiry for these vehicles as well. So it has the opportunity to shift the industry overall, but it seems a shift that everyone's embracing and wanting to see, and that's from a industry point of view, and I think also a societal point of view, and what we as an Australian society are wanting to see for this industry as well.
Thank you very much, Tim. I know you're super busy here at the show, and so really a special big thank you for your time today.
No, I'm happy to do it. It was a great interview, so thank you very much for your time.
You've been listening to Fleet News Group podcast. It was edited and produced by Isabella Fiorentino. You can follow us on Spotify. Just search for Fleet News Group. We're also on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Our website is fleetnewsgroup.com, where you can get all of our stories, videos and podcasts. Until next time, drive safely and take care.